Hello everyone, this is Robin Carter and I am an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator out of Flower Mound, Texas, and today I'm here to share with you my second set of alternatives using the With Love and Gratitude Paper Pumpkin Kit for September of 2023. Thank you for all those who have liked and watched my first set of alternatives. If you missed that, it will be in my channel. Just click on my name and then go to videos, and all my past videos are there, including the first alternative and unboxing of this kit. So if you missed that, go check that out. But if I didn't say already, thank you to my subscribers, and if you are new to my channel or maybe you've watched a few and have yet to subscribe, I'd really appreciate your subscription. Before we get started, I want to share some inventory news with you. If you have been waiting for the Stars at Night bundle, it was originally predicted that it would not be in until October 2nd, but I looked yesterday and it was there, so I was able to grab mine. In my previous card that I used this whole suite, I had borrowed one of my downline set and I missed out on it before it ran out of stock, so I was happy to get that in my order. The trinkets and ribbon are still not available. The trinkets are expected, I think, next week, and the ribbon maybe the 1st of October, something like that. But you never know. Sometimes things come in early, just like this suite did, or this bundle did. So if that has been on your list, you can grab it now. And I do have a current host code. If you do not already have a demonstrator, I would really appreciate your support using this host code. And now we can get to the business at hand and work. I'll show you the alternatives I have made. So I was going to work with the pumpkins, but I came up with two other ideas using the cards and using the card front. So this is my first alternative I want to share with you today. Oops, that stuck to my ribbon. Speaking of this ribbon, they recently did a little refresh on the clearance rack, and this ribbon, which is called the Natural Finish Ribbon, was on there for a very good price. And if you didn't know, this ribbon you can also stamp on. See, I used the little stamp in this kit to stamp on it. So it's a very nice ribbon, and I did pull some, but that'll be okay. All right, so here I started with the card base. The card bases that come in our kit, and this is one of my favorite things. My favorite things are things that Stampin' Up! Does not supply, but I love using the items, and this is the 7x9 envelope. And the list of all my favorite things are in the video details below. Just click on more and you'll see all my favorite things. So this is the card base that came with our kit, but as I said, I would be making A2 cards out of this kit. So this is where I used that. And let me get my components out. My components I store in this 5x7 type of envelope, and they're great for all kinds of organization. All right, so what you're going to need is, I did stick with the vanilla just because I like the softer tone of it for fall. And then you're going to need some copper clay. Now I cheated on this, and this copper clay layer is 5 3/8 by 4 1/8. And I did cheat, and I cut out a copper clay center. So I'm going to change up this alternative by using a copper around this layer and see how it looks. And then I have a very vanilla circle. Now these circles were cut with a Stylish Shapes dies, and they I think they're out of stock or low in inventory, one or the other. And these are some great basic stitch shapes that are great for all your labels and stuff. So the item number for it is 159183. Okay, and then and I appreciate those of you who have asked for me to do a scan and cut video of how I cut these shapes. So I do cut them all white or just basic, and then I put them in my stamp positioning tool and stamp them. And so I am going to look into making that video soon, but right now I've got some alternatives I need to work on. Okay, now this layer, which is 3 7/8 by 5 1/8, I did with the fern on this one. This one I used the exposed brick 3D embossing folder. It's right here, but I think this is out of stock. So I wanted to use something that was in stock, which is the Fern 3D embossing folder, and the item number for it is 158804. If you want to put this exposed brick 3D folder on your list, here is the item number for it. Okay, I still got to work on more labels of my item numbers, so they're there. All right, so let's get started. So since I already have everything done, there's not a lot to do here except this piece. So I did cut the card base in half, and this is just half of it. I'm going to get out my foam mat, which is great to use with the photopolymer stamps. And then I'm going to get my stamp that goes with this kit. Here it is. It's on the back of my splatter stamp. I was like, where did I put it? Okay, so I do want to get a piece of scrap paper and put behind this. So I just find old copy paper, and you can see I've used this before, but I'm just going to keep using it. So, and then I'm going to get out my Lost Lagoon. Now I have the full-size pad, so I'm going to be using it. The spot came in our kit. All right, so I'm just going to ink it up, and I'm going to start stamping on this piece. I want to cover the whole thing, and I did what I usually start in the center, but I didn't this one. So we'll just go straight across, and I'm turning my stamp in multiple directions so that I get a random look. So just stamp it all over in full strength ink. And put some there. And maybe I can get a berry or so, or not a berry. I asked what these were, and I got 2 people that said they're eucalyptus, which makes sense with the Lost Lagoon. I did have one comment that it's called silver dollar, and I Googled that because I had never heard of that, and there is a little silver dollar type flower that looks like this. They're just more white or silver looking. So anyway, here is our piece. So now to make this card, I wanted to spread it all throughout, so I'm going to cut it into 3 pieces. And just so I think it's 1 1/8, but I want to double check that I did cut these, yes, to 1 1/8 inch. So if your paper has sort of a pattern, like I can see this flower goes straight up, so I think I want that at the top. You're going to want to cut it this way. So let's cut it into 1 1/8 inch strips. So I think my ruler guide. All right, since I have it up here, I want to take my blade that way, 1 1/8, 1 1/8, and the last one is going to be, I'm going to do off this side. So you're just going to have just a little bit of waste, not much at all, that much waste. Okay, so now that we have our pieces cut, it's as easy as assembling that. So I'm going to adhere my copper clay piece onto my very vanilla, and it is very vanilla. I thought they got rid of all the very, I thought they just called it vanilla since they switched manufacturers when our Whisper White changed to Basic White, but it is still called very vanilla. I don't use this often, and I do like the soft feel it gives to it. All right, so I like my Tombow multi-purpose glue because it lets me wiggle it around till I have it sort of centered. And like I said, this is 5 3/8 by 4 1/8. It shows just a little bit of my card base behind, which is generally what I like to do. And then I'm going to adhere my Fern folder piece. Now you can choose whether you like the emboss look or the, I forget what this is called when it's up. I like the up piece. Just a preference. Either one is beautiful, so whichever side you choose to use is great. And any embossing folder would work, or just plain vanilla. I just love the detail that embossing folders add to projects. It gives it texture. Okay, so that's on there. Okay, before we get to these 3 pieces, I want to show you what I did to this flower. I did it in my first video, and I really like the look. So since it's an all-one stamp, I like to add the stem some color. And so I've used the copper clay marker, and these are one of the new markers. They have this kind of tip versus a I guess it's a really, really fine tip. So I do like the new markers, the way they designed this end. The other end is a brush tip like it was before. So I'm going to bring back in my stuff to do the stem. So I'm just, you can use either end. I can try the brush mark tip. So you're just going to follow along the stems. And it does hide the Lost Lagoon ink, so that's a good thing. It doesn't become a muddy color. If you just had brown or something like that, that would work as well, like the early espresso. Whoops. See, that's why I don't use the brush tip. I get a little fast, and then I get it too too fat. But I think that still looks good. Let me cover up some of this Lost Lagoon. All right, so there our stems are colored, as easy as that. And so now it looks much more realistic. So since I use copper clay here, that's how I chose my background. All right, so let's adhere these panels to the card base. So let's make sure I still have them. Of course, I messed them all up, didn't I? Out of order. So that one was top. There we go, like that. So I do like it to look like it was one stamp piece, although we're covering up quite a bit of it. If you wanted to be really stingy, you could just use 2 and leave that one out, but I didn't want to do that. Okay, so when I go to center these pieces, I'm going to use my grid sheet, and it has a 0 right here in the center, and then I just square up my card to equal amounts on both sides, right at 275 on both sides. So then I know that this is the center if my card doesn't move. So I lay them like I want them. I do get out my T ruler so I can make sure they're straight. And I can see here that I want each side just on the 1/2 inch mark. So I'm going to use my Tombow so I have a little wiggle room. And I'm going to, if my face or head is in the camera, I apologize. All right, and then I'm going to take my T ruler real quick, make sure that I got it straight, and then burnish the glue in. All right, so that looks good. And now the next ones, you can choose whether you want more spacing or not, because this centerpiece here is going to cover up a lot of it. If you want it exactly centered, I think it's about right there, just off of the 1 inch mark. So let's do the next 2. All right. Get my T ruler. This is on my favorite things list as well. Burnish that one down, and one more to go. All right, and get my T ruler out over here and straighten that one up. And I just kind of eyeball the left and right to make sure they're all in a line. So there are our 3 pieces to cover up, to make it more of a full-size card. All right, so now we're going to adhere. I realize I misplaced my flower. But I also die cut in Very Vanilla one of these leaves. Now this leaf comes from, it's actually called Splendid Stems. I messed up my label here. And this, last time I checked, was on the clearance rack. And these set of dies are only $8.25 in the US. So the item number for it is 159676. Now the coordinating stamp set was also there, and it's right here, and it was on the clearance rack as well. And the item number for it is 159668. And if you look here, which I noticed, it looks pretty much like a eucalyptus stamp. So you could get more and die cut those out if that's what you want. But I also love these leaves. I thought they looked similar to the eucalyptus. So we're going to use that. And now I'm going to look more for my, oh, there it is. I left it on my foam mat. But I wanted to give a little interest. This is not a necessary step. You could just put that there. But I wanted to put some splatter on this Very Vanilla piece to make it more like, give it more of the secondary color that I've used. So that is in copper clay. Now the splatter stamp, I used is from the Irresistible Blooms set. We have received some splatter stamps in our paper pumpkin kit, so feel free to use any that are your favorite. So here's how I'm going to do it. I'm going to start off the side, and this is a rubber stamp, so I don't really need to use the foam mat, but it's not going to hurt it if I don't press too hard. Now I don't want to muddy up this too much, so I'm going to get a second piece of scrap paper. All right, and then I'm going to go over this to get this edge. And then the same thing to get this edge. I used this on the last month's lily pad kit. All right, and just a little more here. Okay, so there's some nice little secondary color to add to the Very Vanilla. So I'm going to adhere this to the copper clay. Now, like I said, in my first card, I used the same Lost Lagoon, but in this card, I wanted to see how it looked with the copper clay. Then you can let me know which one is your favorite. Okay, and I just eyeball that. Okay, and then I'm going to use this ribbon that I said was on the clearance rack. Let me get my ribbon scissors. So if you do have a pair of snips that you use for just paper, paper does dull your scissors a little bit. I mean, not like seriously, but it won't cut your ribbon well. And this ribbon will fray if you're not careful. But I'm going to use my ribbon saving technique that I've showed in most of my videos. So I'm going to cut a piece like that, turn it like that to get this corner, and I'm going to use some tear and tape on the back to hold this down, or at least I can press it onto it. Okay, let's hope I got a big enough piece of ribbon. That was kind of stingy. Okay, so now I have my ribbon like that. It's going the other way, but it doesn't really matter. And I'm going to take 2 pieces for the tails. Okay, so just like that. So all my ribbon is still on the spool. Now I need to put some tear and tape about right here. We have received lots of tear and tape lately, which is kind of nice to have. That was not what we received in the kit, but it'll work. All right, and so now I do pick it up because I want to make sure it kind of looks like it's lined up, oops, with how it came across and then down. I want my tails to be like that. So see, this way I can manipulate how I want the ends. This needs to come in just a little bit. You know what? I'm going to put some Scotch tape on it because it didn't get on the tear and tape, and it's right on the edge. Okay, so there is our ribbon. I'm going to adhere my eucalyptus straight down on the layer at an angle. Let's see. Maybe not that much of an angle because I do need to angle it for my ribbon to stick on there. Okay, and then my sentiment, I did use the thank you that was in the kit, and we'll make one of those. Let me get the punch. So it's the double oval punch, and I'm sorry I didn't put the item number on it, but it will be listed on my blog. When I do my blog post, I will add this as a product supplies used. And I need just a scrap of Very Vanilla. That one might be too small, but we'll see. So I wish the labels were Very Vanilla because I love the gold foil. And I guess you could use both since we have some white here. I'm going to see if this one's big enough. It may not be. So I always turn my punches over and stick them in there. You know, Robin, don't do that. Here's a bigger piece of scrap paper. All right, I'm going to say thank you. And now I can stick this in. I would have cut this smaller because you're going to do a little bit of waste, but that's okay. I did think about putting a border around this, but it really kind of covered up too much of what I liked. So I just thought I would use the oval there. All right, so before I put this down, I wanted to put it up with dimensionals. Let me trim up the ribbon a little bit. It got a little frayed. And what I love about the natural type ribbons is they go with just about anything. So I do have some previous Paper Pumpkin dimensionals. These were back when they used to make them thicker, which they were almost too thick. And I guess they switched suppliers because I know there were some issues with them, the glue not sticking to the tab. Let's put one there. There. I'm being kind of generous today with my dimensionals. You don't want it falling off. Better to be over generous than not enough. Of course, it's tricky when you stick it to a ribbon. It wants to come off the ribbon. Okay, and then you can pick how you want it. I think that I got a little piece of ribbon there. I think that looks pretty good. I may have issues with that going in the envelope. So rather than it get frayed and frayed and frayed, I'm going to trim this edge some more. Just a hair. Okay, and now we're going to add our sentiment. Now I'm going to put it right here. So since it's not going to really hang off, I can just use my Tombow multi-purpose glue right there. And so these embellishments that I used, I'm going to go ahead and do that. Well, let me put on the stem, the extra leaf first. I just like to give it a little more detail. But you can see if you don't have these, I like it just like it is. But that gives it a little more interest. Oh, I didn't use my Dry's clear glue. Or Dry's not tacky glue. That's okay. I'll just try to grab that up. Okay, so for my embellishments, I grabbed the Metallic Enamel Effects Basics. And so they come in these three colors, a gold, a silver, and a copper. And so this copper matches very well, I think, with the copper clay. So here's how you use it. You want to store it so the ink is there. And I just squeeze. You can make a small or big dot as you would like. Okay, and to help them flatten out, what I do is give them a little tap. Okay, so tap your card, and you can see it starts to flatten out. Now you can really stomp it. Whoop, there went dimensional backings all over. But now they're much more round. Is that in the camera? But you're going to want to set this card aside to let it dry. So I hope when I bring my cards back in, I don't smudge it. But I have noticed if you mess one up, you can pretty much peel it off. Just be careful and not get too much of the paper. Get right under your dot. Okay, so that is my first alternative. So now let's get to the second one. Now the second one is more avid. I like to do some semi-avid and then really avid cards. So for this card, I brought in the Around the Bend die set again because I used it on my first alternative. And I thought, you know what, if you really like that and you go to buy this set of dies, I want to show you another use for it. So I got out all my components there. All right, so here is the card I made. I did use that exposed brick again to make this layer. So this is a card base, and this had a little boo-boo on it, so I made sure it was the front, although it's really not the front. I'm going to rescore this so that that will be the front, so I can cover up that little boo-boo on my card. Okay, so now that's going to be the front, and I'll get to put this over the top. So this is the normal A2 card base, and how you make these is if you buy the thick, very vanilla cardstock, you want to score it at 4 1/4 this way. So there'll be another piece here, and then cut at 5 1/2, and that'll give you 2 card bases. If you like the top fold, where the card folds this way, you score at 5 1/2 and then cut at 4 1/4. So anyway, either way you like, I just tend to do what I call the book fold. And I'm going to put the exposed brick folder down. Now this is cut to 5 1/8 by, or 5 3/8 by 4 1/8. I'm all into the 1/8 and 3/8. And this is out of crumb cake. I don't think I said that. Let me get my end on there. Okay, just smooth out the glue so there's no lumps and bumps. Okay, and now I have another piece of the card base that I stamped here. So let's do that again. Now, these I cut to 4, or I think 3/4 of it. Nope, 7/8 of an inch. So let's do our stamping again on the card base piece. So you're only going to sacrifice one card base piece to make both of these alternates. And I lost my Lost Lagoon. And get out the stamp again from the kit. All right, so let's ink this one up again. Again, you can just be pretty random. I love Lost Lagoon. I love this. It's the best replacement for Soft Succulent that we lost. That was one of my favorites. And of course, it retired. It was an in color that retired last year. Or not last year, really in April, the start of this new catalog. Okay, so there is our card base piece all stamped up. All right, I'm going to set that aside for just a second. I'm not going to set it on my copper clay ink. All right, so let's get to this border. So there are 2 nice dies in this Around the Bend set, and the item number for it, if I can get this flower out of the way, is 160649, and it will be on my, when I get to my blog post, I will list it in the supplies. But it has this nice whimsical border, okay? And then it also has this curvy scallop that matches that. So what you're going to want to do, now I have already used the stamp set, and there is a coordinating stamp set for the around the bend, and it has a dotted line for your scallop. Now I already have it in my Stamparatus, and I bought this last year when they did the option of a cling or a photopolymer. I believe right now they just offer it in the cling, which makes sense because it was a little more difficult to do this with the cling. I just bought cling because I generally prefer cling, but on this set I think I might have preferred it in photopolymer. But anyway, I did line that. So you want to stamp probably first and be generous and use about, I'd say at least a 2-inch wide piece of paper, and you may even want to make this at least 5.5. Okay, and then you can trim it later, because after you die cut that out, you'll want to line up your dots on your paper, cut it out, and you can see mine hung off the edge just a little bit. Okay, and then you're going to cut this one. And this, again, I would use the same 2-inch-ish type paper, I guess, since this is smaller, although if you wanted more off the side, you could do that. And then kind of do it at the same proportion you did your die, right? So you're going to want a little hanging off at each side. So if you do it a little longer, like 5.5 or even more, then you have plenty of room to trim, so that when you go to adhere this, you can line it up perfectly with the curved line. Okay, so that's how I did that. Now I wish I would have used sticky sheets, but I did not. So I'm going to go with my glue that dries not sticky, in case some comes through the hole. Every time I think I've gotten all these little dots out, I find another. And you know what? I've seen some where people leave them in, and it looks nice too. So I just tend to poke them all out. So I'm going to add this glue where there's bigger spaces between the dots. All right, and then we're going to flip it over and line that up with the curve. I did pretty good. There's another dot. Okay, so that's pretty good. So now I can smooth this down, although I notice my border here is not correct. So I'm going to want to trim that up a little bit. That was my daughter calling me. I'm wondering if I should answer that. Okay, so I just cut that whole thing off like that. I am going to get my trimmer and try to make this a flat or a even spacing. So I just want to trim off just a little bit. Now with this trimmer, it's going to be tricky. You know what? That's better, and I'm going to go with that. Okay, so now we have this, and we're going to adhere this to our card base. Go back to my favorite Tombow. It dries much quicker than the other. That's why I really like this one. You know, if I put it off the side, well, I'm just going to do this. I would do a better job on this. I promise. I did on my first one, but I got that one even. So I don't want to start over again with you because you get the idea. Okay, so now we're going to take our piece here and we're going to cut it into 7/8 of an inch. And because this is going vertical, I want to cut those this way. Okay, so it really makes 4. So you can save this other one, and if you make a couple of these, then eventually you'll be able to make it out of that way. They won't line up necessarily stamped wise, but it'll just be a random piece, or maybe find a different use for it. Okay, and then I wanted to get a very vanilla panel for this. Now this panel is, I lost my ruler. Here it is, okay, I set that down on the copper, didn't I? It's about 3 inches by 3 5/8. So let me get out my very vanilla. Let's see if this one is big enough. It's going to be big enough. You can start just putting it down and then trim it afterwards. I'm going to go ahead and risk cutting it. And just a hair under 3, but I'm going to make it 3 and see how we do. So 3 inches this way. And then 3 5/8 that way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, so let's line these back up in the way they were stamped, because, let's see, that one goes there. Because these are so close together, you're going to want to make sure you get the image kind of lined up. All right, so to center this again, I'm going to do like I did with the other and put it on my grid sheet right there and do the center one first. Set it down evenly and then get out my T ruler. I've got stuff all over again. Make sure it's, whoops, I turned the whole thing, didn't I? Let's see if I can get it fixed before it dries. Okay, that's good and straight. And now you can pretty much eyeball these here because there's not much gap. If you wanted a bigger gap around these, you definitely could cut a bigger piece of paper. I just left like 1/8 of an inch. That one's not quite straight, are you? Okay. All right, that looks good. Give that a second to dry. Now I also want to give you another tip on this ribbon, this natural finish. So it is very wide, and if you want it smaller, what I do is I adhere tear and tape, and I fold it in half. So let me just show you what I do. So I got that piece big enough to go around, and then you want to get out your tear and tape again. Find where it starts. Okay, and just put a piece down at the bottom like this. All right, then you can peel that off. Without pulling it back off the ribbon. There we go. And then you can just fold it in half. Okay, and that's what I did for the ribbon that I was going to put around the top. Now, if you can decide whether you like the double look. I'm just going to go with the single. And I didn't do that quite even. Let's see if I can pull it apart and do it again. You know, I may try the bordered look. Let's try that this time. Just for something different. Okay, that's a little harder to do for me. This ribbon stretches quite a bit, so you can go with what you like. I'm going to put Scotch tape. You can see it frayed a lot on the back where you mess with it. What I did with the ribbon last time that frayed was I put that silver metallic of the end colors. I put glue dots on the underneath side to hold it together. Now, I want to get that semi-straight. All right, that's pretty good. It's a little off, but I don't think it matters that much. Okay. You know what? My daughter's calling again. Let me see if she really needs me. Okay, hold on just a second. I'm going to mute the microphone. Okay, sorry about that. It's just she called twice and I had to make sure it wasn't an emergency. She was just telling me about her class. She thinks she did well on her test. So there we go. All right. Let me put dimensionals on this as well. Life happens, even while you're making cards, so I apologize for muting it. I thought it was an emergency. She was like, well, you could have just texted me that you're making a video. And I said, well, when you called twice, I thought it might have been an emergency. Okay. There we go. I'm not sharing as many tips today, am I? I'm usually all full of tips. All right, now I do want to put the ribbon up at the top. You can choose how you want it. Now, I did use different. These are from the same die set that's on the clearance rack, but I wanted to use these other ones. Now, I see that needs to go right where a dimensional is, so I'm going to let the dimensional hold that one down. And then I'm going to choose a sentiment. You can use the ones in the kit. However, one of my favorites is in the new catalog. The new mini is called So Sincere, and it has some great sentiments that I love. And if you're just a Paper Pumpkin subscriber, but you want more sentiments for your cards, you can always choose sentiment-only stamp sets that are in the annual catalog. So the item number for this is teeny tiny 162283, and it's called So Sincere. So that's what I used here. I'm going to leave it off for now and add a sentiment later, but I know I'm going to want another matching stem there. So before my dimensional totally holds down, I'm going to put that there. Now you can use rhinestones. I'm going to go ahead and put the gold on here this time so you can see what it looks like. Gold. Let's just say I'm going to do a sentiment that size. And I can always go add another after I put my sentiment on there. And again, just give it a little flick or a tap. Whoop, that was way flat. And it kind of flattens out any bump you have. Now, if you don't like the way it's looking while it's wet, you can go back on top, add a little bit, give it a nicer thump. there, and then it flattens out more to a round look or oval look. Okay, so these are my alternates for you today. The best comment you can give me is to leave a comment and give me a thumbs up. Share this video. I also am working on cards with the pumpkins, but I don't want to take up too much of your time today. So we have a pretty avid card, and then we have a not as avid card because there's no fussy die cutting there. So like I said, if you do not have a demonstrator and would like to add any of these products to your supplies, I would really appreciate your using my host code here. And any orders of $75 or more, you will receive a special gift from me. Also remember, the subscription period for the October Paper Pumpkin Kit is going on now. And you can also pre-purchase Paper Pumpkin subscription. So you can do 1 month, 3, 6, or 12. I generally do this 12. Now this is, I believe, before tax or something like that. But so ignore, this might have been when there was free shipping. So you will have shipping and or tax if that applies to your area on these amounts. But these are the item numbers you can use to pre-purchase Paper Pumpkin sets, and they go towards earning you Stampin' rewards. So if you choose the 127 and you bump your order up to $150, then you earn Stampin' rewards of $15 at $150. You start earning 10% of your merchandise total. So always remember that. My favorite time to do that is during celebration and or free shipping days. So, but it does help out with your orders if you're wanting to earn hostess rewards. So anyway, thanks for watching today. I hope you enjoy this video. And until my next video, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on the next ones. Have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.